turn that on. Let's see, turn that on. And turn this on. And then clap. Let's see if that works. Dude, thanks for coming over and doing this with me.
Of course.
I really appreciate it.
For sure.
I think that's super cool, and it's like, it'll help give people another kind of, even just me and you sitting in the same room is a miracle. You know what I mean?
It says something.
Yeah, man, it definitely says something. It kind of, for me, like, for you to be able to come over to my house kind of shows me how my life's changed. Because I would be in this same exact house scared that y'all were coming. You know what I mean? Scared somebody was going to kick the door or knock on the door looking for me with a warrant.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of bad stuff, taking people's laptops. I remember I took this kid's laptop, dude, and pawned it. And I was scared for so long he was going to call. It was my buddy. And I was scared for so long he was going to call the cops and they were going to come get me for like $50.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know, it's just cool, man, to be able to, like, I've been looking forward to it ever since I texted you.
Yeah.
And so
I'm glad to be here, man.
I'm thankful that you're willing to talk about stuff like this.
Well, I mean, I think it's what has to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
The barriers we have to break through those, you know. There shouldn't be, folks shouldn't look at, or you don't want folks to look at cops as like, we can't talk to them like they're normal people.
Yeah.
Or maybe assume that they can't relate to every person that, you know, whether it be someone who's doing good or bad, you know. I mean, we're people. So, I mean, at that point, that's, you know, you got to everybody's got to make themselves a little bit more vulnerable to see all the sides of it. Because if you live in just a specific lane and you never venture out of that, then you don't get to experience other parts of life that you maybe that I'm not living. But you know, you gotta make yourself vulnerable, and I think you're doing that right now by obviously, you know, letting me on here, and I appreciate that, because this is much a learning experience for me as it is for you, and hopefully the folks watching, that, you know, that maybe if there's somebody that they feel like maybe they could reach out to, or let them get help from somewhere, you know, especially in law enforcement. I guess to break down, I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff everybody's seeing. You only see the bad stuff on TV that's going on in law enforcement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a ton of good things happening, but that's not what people get to see, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely sad to me, just from the standpoint of like having family in law enforcement that work and kind of used to work in the same area that you work in. It's just kind of sad seeing police officers portrayed as these evil, bad, racist people, when you got a couple of people, maybe anywhere you work's going to have a couple of people there that are just not great. You know what I mean?
People are going to be people.
People are going to be people, and the thing about it is, we judge a whole group sometimes, like police officers or a race or whatever, off of what one person does, unfortunately. Yeah. And I mean, it sucks, but what for me it sucks is, like, there's so many good police officers out there that it sucks to hear people talking bad about them. And these are people, like, you're gonna call if somebody breaks in your house. Who are you gonna call?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, I feel like people don't think, or if you wreck your car going down the highway and you're standing there dying, who's gonna save you? The same guy that you're on the street talking shit about. And I've been there, and I've talked shit about those same people and done the exact same things. And for me now, it's like, I guess, growing up a little bit and realizing that holding those grudges and things like that against anyone, especially police officers, is pointless. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, it goes back to making that change. You have to be willing to make that change and willing to accept the change, or even, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Even, you got to make yourself available to see outside of what you're living.
And that goes for both sides.
Both ways, man.
Like you and the person.
That's right. So, I mean, it's kind of like, we talked a little bit about this before we got started, but I mean, it's kind of like if I do a vehicle stop or something and I'm talking to a person, if I go on a vehicle stop and I just do A, B, and C and then I'm done, I don't take 2 seconds to, maybe just as much as a how you doing.
Yeah.
May spark somebody saying like, man, really not doing too good right now. Oh, really? What's going on? And then maybe that may be I've been doing this, and this, or I'm going through this, like my parents are splitting up, or I'm going through a divorce, or I've been sick, or, whatever. You never know how you might help someone. And I can see very easily how for law enforcement and everybody, not just law enforcement, but I mean in life, especially like with work and things, if you're 8 to 5, you're like, hey, I'm on at 8, I'm out at 5, and I got 1,000 things I got to do. And a lot of times people want to the path of least resistance. So I mean, it's like, hey, I stop you for speeding. Hey, here's your citation. Be in court this date. Boom, and you're gone. But it'll never hurt. I'm a talker anyways, so I've always been one of the type people that I try to understand the people that I'm dealing with too, and I think it's just in my nature to kind of to be friendly to people, to sort of just to hey, how are you doing? Of course, what we're dealing with right now may not be what you want, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be a bad experience either.
Right.
So that's just one thing I've always kind of personally for me that I've always done in my work is that I don't judge people for what they do. I got a job to do, and that's it. It's a job for me. It doesn't define who I am as a person, though. I mean, to some extent, I guess it does, but I'm still my own person, and I mean, I care about folks. So if I feel like I can help somebody or do something by stepping out of the norm, per se, a little ways, it's like, hey, what do you got going on? You're not doing too good, or, can I help you, or, or what can we do? I think that's just something that we all need to do, not just for law enforcement and people that are going, dealing with maybe bad things in their life, but I mean, just in general. Hell, if you're at the store and you're passing by somebody, I've always been a hey, how you doing type guy. Even
if I'm same way.
So I mean, that's just, you never know how you might change somebody's day, man. I mean, I was teaching a class. I teach at Fayetteville Tech too, and I was just teaching a class, and there's a guy talking about suicide named Kevin Hines.
Mm-hmm.
He's jumped off the bridge out in San Francisco. And
Black guy?
It's a white guy. He's Hispanic, actually, but he was adopted.
But he lived. He jumped off the bridge. I think I've seen the video.
So that guy, one thing that he said on that, he rode a bus out there, right, to the tourist site. So he leaves from the city, and he's on the bus, and he's out there. He's like, man, I was in this deep, dark depression. He said, and I'm looking around. He said it was very obvious for him that he was going through some things. He said not one person said like, hey, kid, you doing all right? You good? What's going on? He said not one person. And that's what made him feel like nobody cared. That's why he did it. And then, of course, he regretted it as soon as my feet and hands left the rail and I was in free fall, I thought, oh, my God, what'd I just do?
Yeah.
But leading up to that, who knows if one person might be like, hey, man, you good? He may not ever made that leap, took that leap. So that's kind of my, and it's not just that scenario, but that's kind of my, you don't know how you're going to change somebody's life. You don't know how you might be able to serve somebody, in life as a friend or as however it may be. So, I mean, simply asking somebody how they're doing or, hey, you having a good day? Maybe that
change the whole course.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, they may be veering off track so hard, and you divert them, and they say, damn, somebody, maybe this isn't what I want to do, like for him, He said if somebody would ask him that, maybe he wouldn't have jumped, so it's kind of my thought process. I mean, I've been blessed in so many ways that I just feel like it's my duty really to pay it forward and try to be there for whoever. Right. Really.
I think that's kind of what sets you apart, and you are in the right profession because I feel like you make a huge impact in what you do, and that was a big difference between. So have been pulled over multiple times by the cops. We were talking about this beforehand, before we started the podcast, but I've been pulled over multiple times by police officers, and not really one time do I remember one of them speaking to me like I was an equal.
Right.
And it was always like a talking down type of thing. Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm sure there was some reasons why they were doing that. Maybe I was doing that to them. I don't really remember. Right. But I do remember when you and, can I say their names?
Yeah, you can.
You and Estes and the other Brian.
Allen.
And Brian Allen, when you guys got me that day, I just felt it was different, man. Like, it was something different that happened. Like, I didn't want to be there with you guys. That was the last place I wanted to be, you know. But it was something different. Like, all right, so I'm gonna try to make it. You'll probably understand. So, I was crying for help on the inside, but couldn't allow it to come out of my mouth, right, for so long, for years, because I had been doing the same thing with the drugs since the beginning of high school. Like, since I started high school, I had been doing it every day. Like, there wasn't a day that passed. And just from, I think I was 21, so I had been doing the same thing for 8 or 7 years, pretty much. I mean, before that, but on every day for like 7 years. And then when you guys got me that day, I knew there was nothing I could do, because you knew what I had in my pocket and you pointed it out, and I'm like, well, there ain't nothing I can do at this point. I mean, this is it. This is the time to surrender, you know what I mean? And just the way I was treated, and you like put me, I know I definitely probably wasn't the nicest person in the world, you know, and it's like the way you guys responded and reacted to the way I was reacting was something different. And I'm like, you know, these guys aren't so bad, because I looked at y'all like the enemy. Like, because you were trying to stop me from doing what I wanted to do every day.
Right.
So I looked at you like the enemy. And so just the way you guys handled me, and the way you actually cared enough to ask me questions above and beyond what a law enforcement officer would normally ask, that was the difference maker for me, man. And that's why I didn't hesitate to talk back to you when you talked to me, because I, like, after the fact.
Right.
Like, after the fact that I got arrested, went to jail, made bail, went to rehab, went to a halfway house. You guys helped me out in court when I needed it, because I was doing the right thing.
Right.
And you guys helped me out and made it so, like, I don't have to deal with that on my record today. Right. Every time I turn around, somebody bringing that up, I don't have to deal with that, because you guys helped me out, because I was willing to help myself.
Right.
You know, and that's why I didn't hesitate to talk to you, man, because I knew you weren't, like, up to something.
Right.
Like, when you messaged me, like, I knew you weren't trying to get something out of me that would further you in life. I knew you were just talking to me out of the selflessness of your heart, basically.
Right.
So, I don't know, man. I think that really it changed my outlook on law enforcement, even having a law enforcement officer in my family.
Right.
Like, you still kind of changed my whole outlook on, you know, police officers as people who do care, and, like, some of them do want to help push you to a better place and help you move to where you've been. I have been crying out for help for years, but not really doing it the right way.
Right.
And didn't know how to do it. But you guys kind of forced me into that. Like, there won't no hiding it then.
Right.
Like, when my dad came to see me in the jailhouse, and Evan Barker's daddy called him. I think it was Wade is his name. Yeah, Wade was the warden.
Right.
And he came down there, and he's like, Alex Hunt. And I'm like, yeah, man. And he's like, you used to play ball out there at Dalrymple with my boy. And I'm like, hanging my head. And he's like, man, you look terrible. I'm about to call your daddy down here and let him see what you're doing. Because he looked at my cell. I was in the isolation.
Right.
And he looked at my cell, and I just remember him being disappointed. And I didn't even really know him. Never really spoke to him.
Right.
But I knew who he was.
Right.
Called my daddy down there, dude. My daddy was looking, I'd never seen a look of disappointment like that, you know. And I'd only not done drugs for 24 hours, but I could immediately feel that, like, the disappointment, like the vibes. You know how you can feel somebody's vibe?
Yeah.
You can't feel that when you're all screwed up on drugs. Yeah. It's like taking away, like, your intuition, your feelings, a lot of the good things are taken away from me when I'm on drugs. Yeah. And I could feel it, dude, after 24 hours and not using, I could feel like, all right, this dude ain't playing, man. Like, this is my chance. Like, this is, like, I was too ashamed to say anything. Like, my granddaddy even would ask me, like, do you need help? Are you okay? And I'm like, man, I'm good. I don't need help, you know? Like, I was too ashamed, dude. I think shame played a big part in why I wouldn't stop, and I couldn't admit it. But when you guys put me at the cell, it was like there wasn't no more denying it. Like, it's right there on black and white on paper.
Yeah. Like,
my daddy knew what was going on. So, you know, it was a life-changing moment, dude, and I'll be forever grateful for it, because I probably would be dead. I mean, I was really on the path to being dead. Like, I was so deep in addiction that I was going to rob a guy that day at gunpoint before you guys got me. Like, that evening, I was planning to rob this dude that had a gun, probably would have shot me. Like, who knows what would have happened, dude. And, like, it's no coincidence that y'all were sitting at that store and everything unfolded like it did, man. It just gives me chills, dude, and it, like, chokes me up to think back at, like, the path I was going down, dude, and, like, where I'm at now, and everything that I have, like, just the people that I actually, none of the possessions, but the actual people that I care about. Like, I was incapable of caring about anybody, including myself, dude.
Yeah.
And I just want to convey to you that, like, y'all changed my life by doing your job, and you, like, really by caring just a little bit more than everybody else that I have been stopped by. Like, it changed my life, dude, because I felt like there won't no hiding it. Like, this dude Sturk, he knows, like, something's wrong. And if he knows something wrong, everybody else knows something's wrong.
That's right, yeah.
So, I mean, it was just like dude, God really used you. And, you know, I go back and forth on, like, what I believe in, but I definitely believe that something is more powerful than we are, and there's a God somewhere. And I just think that it's, you were in position that day to really change my life, dude, and I'm so thankful. I got a little boy, and, like, I wouldn't have none of that. Like, my parents would be in the same position that my best friend's parents are in, and not have a son no more.
Yeah.
Like, if y'all hadn't have stopped me. Some people got to be stopped, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Some people's got to have the roadblock thrown in front of them.
Yeah, dude.
But, you know, I mean, and it goes the same way for us. From the law enforcement perspective, you think about the fact that you were able to open up to us. We were able to get everything aligned. The planets aligned perfectly. You were willing to go do what you needed to do to get around, over, put it behind you. The amount of reward that does for us, like, I mean, I tell your story all the time, man. I brag all the time, like, my man just hit 7 years of sobriety. Like, you're the only story that I have that has been as successful as you are.
That you know of.
That I know of.
Could be others.
And there could be others. And there are other people that I know that I've helped that have done well for a period of time, and then they fall off and they get back up. And that's the thing. There's a lot of people that I keep in contact with. But the reward of actually knowing that I played a part in changing someone's life, where you're at now and having a family and a kid, I mean, may or may not have happened.
Definitely wouldn't have. Definitely,
you know, I mean, if we had not crossed each other's paths, but like I said, you even at the point that you were saying that, you know, there was no more hiding it, you could have just as easily said, oh, well, cat's out of the bag now. This is my life. This is what I'm living. This is what I'm doing, and not made that change. But you took the initiative to do it, and you made yourself more vulnerable. Just like we were saying, because there were things that looking forward, moving forward, you were not looking forward to dealing with. You knew it was going to be tough, but you were willing to do that. And I know a lot of folks, you know, that I talk to, that I want to try to maybe give them the same opportunity to help themselves. They want it, and especially in certain moments, until it's like time to put feet on the ground and really make it happen, and then they shy away from it because they know what it will what it will take to get through it. And I've never personally experienced any of this, but just talking to so many different people, in time when you get folks that's battling addiction to open up, their stories are all the same. They're all scared of the same thing. Their biggest thing is they're scared that they don't want to fail, and then how do you tell somebody, like, you're already failing? You know what I mean?
You're not free.
You can't fail any worse than that. You're where you don't want to be, and essentially you're failing now. If you're trying to change this, then you're progressing. Even if you're trying, and you know as well as I do, it's not, you don't just decide, hey, today I'm gonna change my life, and then it's just, it's behind me. Life's great. And that's the thing, is I think people are fearful of saying, hey, I'm doing good, but I failed. They have to know, I think, in the beginning. When I talk to folks, and I know that they're especially dealing with like opiates and things like that, I tell them, expect to fall down. When you walk through this door and you decide that you're going to change your life, you're going to fall down. And if you don't fall down, you're going to get damn close to falling down.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. And that's something that I think going into it, they need to know, because you can't. I've never been one to just paint a perfect picture like, hey, you take this pamphlet of information, you call me, or I'll take you to see these folks, and your life's going to be great.
Right.
That's just, everybody wants to see statistics, and what they don't want to realize is like the real struggle that it's going to take to get that person through that. And I mean, that's just, they have to be willing to open themselves up. Same for me. And that's, I've always felt like making myself available. Because, I've got family members that are addicted to drugs. I had just recently, a week before last, a family member by marriage to me had overdosed and passed away. So I just, it's everywhere, to think that nowadays, especially, to think that people aren't dealing with it. Like you said, I was ashamed, but I didn't want to talk about it. And there are plenty of people that do talk about it. But everybody is, and it's pretty strong. I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, but opiate addiction is like cancer. You ask somebody, you know anybody that's close to you that's got cancer, or a family member, every person you're going to say, yeah. It's turned to be the same way now. It's like, hey, anybody that's dealing with drug abuse or drug addiction, and I say, yeah.
There's always somebody
somewhere. So this really is something that we got. We're gonna have to deal with. This is not an issue that can just be pushed to the back burner and think it's gonna go away, because it's not. Not to mention, when we started talking a little bit before we went on, that about clinics and things that people are trying to get themselves off from, and they get stuck in that cycle. And then they become between a cycle of, I'm at a clinic getting whatever it be, methadone, or getting Suboxone, and then back on drugs, and then off. And I kind of think that there should be some more regulation on those places that are that basically, it's a money racket to me. It's what I see it as. And you and me were talking about, if a drug's designed to do, you're only supposed to be on this for 14 to 28 days, whatever it may be, and then you should be on another path of treatment to try to beat this addiction.
Why are they on it for 2, 3, 4 years?
Why? People that's like, I've been going to the methadone clinic for 5, 6 years, and it's like, damn, obviously whatever plan of treatment this is, it's not working.
Yeah.
It's time to try something different, and I think the regulation should come in to, at that point, I'm sorry, they're taking the people that are running these things, and the physicians and whatever government funding they're getting.
Some of them are private.
And some of them are private.
Yeah.
Whatever. But
you really think the private ones aren't doing it to make money? Of course they are. Yeah, just like any other business.
So there just needs to be more regulation on that, because that has become just as much of a problem as the drug addiction in itself.
Well, the problem for me is that you can't, like, if you're a drug addict and you're addicted to drugs, for me, like, and I've been on Suboxone, I've tried all that shit, and it just didn't work, you know. And the reason for me it didn't work is because it didn't allow me to I couldn't change while I was still on it, because I was still every single day looking forward to that dose and looking forward to, like, this is what my mind kind of revolved around. And if you use up that much energy and time and brain space on that one thing, how can you really apply yourself to anything else? And it's still like, if I ran out, I would still go do whatever it took to get another one.
Right.
It's the same type of mentality, and it breaks my heart, because people, and I'm not judging and saying somebody's clean or not clean, but my experience is that when people get on those things and they say they're clean, when they get off of them, they're like, I really wasn't clean.
Right.
And so that tells me kind of everything I need to know. It's like, okay, well, why do you think you really weren't clean now? And it's because you probably weren't, you know, and it sucks, because you're probably not going to die if you're taking your dose every day like you're supposed to.
Right.
You know, so it essentially is saving lives, but, like, are you really living is my question.
Those type treatments, to me, and this is only my opinion of the way I see it, if people can say, I want to get the monkey off my back type thing, having that dose, like you said, I'm looking forward to getting that every day. That stuff allows you, if it doesn't work in a period of time that they say you're supposed to start it, stop it, and be done with it, you never really, essentially, the chains are never off you. You're never free.
No, you're never free. You're still bound by those chains.
And that's where, when I say, like, regulation needs to come in, is that it's not fair to the person that's the addict, because common sense tells me that, you know. So I know a physician or any other caregiver, whatever it might be, they know that too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, I mean,
now especially more than, maybe not when it first started, but
when they truly say an epidemic, I mean, it is. I mean, it's worse than anything. I mean, I've been a cop since 2005, and it's worse than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, with hands down. Opiates have, we went through, when opiates really first hit with the whole prescription pills, everybody was doing OCs and Opanas, and
that was kind of when I was there.
And then the prices on that were just outrageous. Ridiculous. I mean, some of those things were selling for $2 a milligram, so cats were spending $160 on the 80. And then I had a guy tell me one morning, he's like, we arrested him, he tells me, he says, man, he's like, every morning, so I'm not sick, he said, I'm spending $100 easy, just so I'm not sick.
Just to feel
normal. Not even saying like, hey, so I'd have to go spend 80 so I wasn't sick and I felt half normal. And then I had to think about, like, then I was going to get high.
More? Yeah. How can I get high?
Yeah. So then after that, he's like, so no wonder heroin has taken off, and that's crazy. I mean, because hell, if you're spending $300-400 a day on pills, I mean, you can get a ton of heroin for that. You know, I mean, you got people buying,
spending $100 on heroin, you high all day.
Yeah, and you're getting 10. You're getting 10 bags or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, of course, where there's supply, where there's demand, there will be supply. Right. So the pills started it, and I mean, now they're falling off. I mean, of course you still see them, but it has become a little harder for folks to doctor shop and get pills and things like it is, because there's a lot more databases, and everything's more electronic now, so it's easy to see. And then when the price, once heroin came and the prices were more than half the cost, I mean, folks are naturally going to go to it.
Cheaper, yeah.
The unfortunate part of that is you don't know what you're getting.
And you got to use a needle most of the time. Most people aren't going to snort heroin.
Right.
You know, and then that brings a needle brings a whole nother
beast.
And I never got involved in that, but you know, I've seen it just completely just destroy people like that. Yeah. Now it don't take 3 months to get destroyed by a needle. It takes like 3 days.
Yeah.
Or 3 hours. You know what I mean?
No, I've had people tell me before that I felt like I was somewhat in control until I put a needle in my arm.
You know, people get addicted to the actual needle, not even to the drug that's in it.
Yeah.
But to the needle going in the vein is what's mind-blowing to me. It's like you're more addicted to the actual process than you are to the drug, which is, it just blows my mind. It's scary, dude, to think about that one time is all it takes for somebody to be like, oh, this is what I've been missing all my life. You know, and it's something that's going to eventually kill them and tear their whole life apart.
I've heard people say before that were recovering addicts, they say just going to the regular doctor, and like there's one lady was involved in a vehicle wreck, and they were going to start her an IV, and they got her in the back of the ambulance, and they're getting ready to start her IV, and she's like freaking out. No,
yeah,
don't stick a needle in me type thing. They're like, hey, it's just fluids, we got to get these in. And she's like, simply a needle being stuck in my arm, I feel 100% almost confident that I would relapse.
That's crazy.
And I'm like thinking like, geez, man.
That's scary,
when
dude.
When you think about it, when you just stop, take everything away from around you, and you think like the simplest thing as of someone starting an IV on you, like, that's going to start me all over. That's going to take me back to square one. That's scary.
Scary, dude.
Scary. I mean,
yeah.
You know, so if people ever doubt the power of addiction and what it is, I mean, say no more. Right there. Say no more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's scary. That's bad.
Yeah.
So, but not just, I mean,
I wanted to ask you about the Narcan.
Yeah.
Like what you think about it, and in Wilmington there's a big debate on radio stations and through peers and older people and younger people. There's a big debate on whether or not, you know, it's a good thing or not. And I know you watched some of the one I did with the girl Becca that was harm reduction. Yeah. I just want, because you guys actually have that now.
Yeah, every patrol car in Lee County from the sheriff's office has Narcan Kits in.
How did that happen? Like, what brought that about?
We actually work with harm reduction here in Sanford. There's harm reduction here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
A place called Project Lazarus, which is a huge nonprofit here that works with us for heroin addiction, things like that. So Project Lazarus was the first group to outfit as many as they could right away. I mean, we put them on our frontline patrol officers. That way they were there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, to my understanding, they're pretty expensive kits, I think, which is crazy to me, too, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So eventually, long story short, we got everybody on the sheriff's department, every vehicle has a Narcan kit in it. Like, for me, this essentially is my uniform at work. I mean, this is something I would wear to work. So on our vest, I mean, we carry Narcan on it so that if we have to have it and we need to dispense the product, we can do it like right away. You know, we're not having to fumble around and look for it. We can go ahead and administer the dose, and it's been used. I mean, it's been something that we've used. I was actually the first one in Lee County to ever use Narcan.
Really?
I had the first reversal.
And it worked.
It did work, yeah.
Yeah. Did you only have to do it once?
One, yeah. We use the 4 milligram or microgram nasal sprays. So it's a little plastic cannula you rip open.
Yeah, we got one.
It's one dispense. I mean, you press it and it just administers that dose. So in our kits, I think there comes 2 in a box, and we got so I mean we have 4 doses that we can give on each officer. Each officer has that. So because I have been present before when it takes more than one. And I've seen them administer numerous times, and then on the way to the hospital they start to overdose again type thing. So
that's crazy, man.
And then of course there's like Narcan resistant fentanyl out there now too. I think it's called like carafentanil or whatever.
Oh my God, dude.
So they're made the synthetic process that is actually Narcan resistant, so that Narcan doesn't work on it.
It's terrible.
But Narcan, I think, is a good thing. Like I said, I mean, we all carry it, and I don't know. I mean, I want to say we've probably had, over a 2-year period, probably 40 to 50 reversals in the county, probably.
That's great, dude.
Yeah, so I mean, we've
reversals. You're saying
a reversal means there's a person that's essentially overdosed, and without that dose of Narcan, that they would have likely passed away.
Yeah.
So you're reversing an overdose.
40 to 50.
Somewhere around in there, and I don't have
in a year. You're saying?
No, we've had them now for 2-3 years.
Oh, that's great. Y'all have had them that long. So in 2 to 3 years, you've had 40 to 50 people that's been saved by this drug.
Saved, yeah.
Wow, dude.
That's on record. I mean, that's for us. I mean, that's just in with the sheriff's office at the county.
Does the city have them?
The city has them, and then of course, EMS dispenses a lot. So I don't have any numbers for them, but
man, that's great, dude.
But
out of those 40 to 50 people, I guarantee you doesn't do drugs anymore. I guarantee you, one out of them people you brought. That's a very small number. 1 out of 50. Yeah. I guarantee you, at least one of them don't do it anymore. Probably more than that.
I hope. Yeah,
and that's the thing where people have a problem. It's like you were saying earlier, this epidemic has touched almost everybody. Somebody in your family or that you know deals with a drug addict or somebody with a drug problem.
Yeah.
And where people have a problem is like, you're going to sit here and say, why would we administer this drug that's going to bring somebody back to life when they're going to turn around and just go get high again? And it's like, there's definitely a chance that they're not going to do that anymore after that experience of dying, pretty much.
And for me, my initial response is that, so people say like, oh, Narcan enables people. They know it's there, so therefore there is no reason to really not do heroin, because they're like, hey, the EMS, police, somebody, or even possibly their friends that may have Narcan.
Yeah.
They say, well, it'll just save me. If I OD, it'll save me. You know what I mean? And people will say, well, why do we keep saving people that will continue to use? If we all only had one chance to make a mistake, the world would be a lot different. And for me, and this is just personally for me, like, you're talking, if somebody asked me, why would you administer Narcan? I mean, that's to me is kind of like, we don't decide life. People don't decide life and death. I mean, that's not our decision. I mean, that, I guess it's like saying if you had strep throat and the medicine's right here to treat it, are we going to be how do you pick and choose who gets it and who doesn't?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And so it's just, obviously it's there, it's a medication that's available, and it goes along with overdosing. And so you have to think about intent with folks too. I've never met a person who is doing drugs that their intention is to go overdose. Now, if it's suicide, that may be a different story, but I would say 99.9% of the time, folks that overdose, that was not their goal.
That's why as high as possible.
They're not trying to do this. And I know that there's times too that folks that are doing just the smallest amounts of heroin that has fentanyl or something in it, they just don't know what they're getting. I mean, it's a risk. It's a known risk. And
it's a risk that's not going to keep people from doing it, though.
But it's not going to keep. We know that. I mean, you look around. I mean, we have people that's like, "Hey, have you ever overdosed before?" Yeah. I've been brought back by Narcan 3-4 times. They'll sit there and tell you, like, I'm not continuing to do heroin because I know you'll save me. I mean, you have to think, and then people think about how many times a person may actually receive Narcan over a time. If you're doing drugs for a 5-10 year period, you may be reversed 3, 4, 5, 6 times maybe. You know, I mean, that's a lot. But you think about how many times they're actually getting high, you know, and they're not having to be saved, you know, or you know, reversed. So I mean, it's
every
not
day,
like you know
day.
what I mean. So I mean, it's not like they're saying like, hey, I'm gonna just live to do this and someone will save me. That's not their intent. So therefore, with me, I feel like that's my job. I mean, it's to preserve life. I mean, I don't.
Right.
If I go roll up on a car wreck, you know, and I say, oh well, he looks like a bad guy, I'm not gonna help him. I mean, what's different?
That's the best comparison I've heard.
I mean, what's different?
It's the same thing to me.
There's no difference. You know, we don't get to choose
who we help, who helps us either.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, that's the easiest way for me to say it is it's not my choice to roll up on a car wreck or a gunshot victim or something. I'm not going to help him because I don't like what he's wearing or something or how he looks. This isn't just for law enforcement. It's for everybody. We need to help people. You know, I mean, that's in a community. That's what our job is. We look out for our neighbors. So I think that the conception of that, there's a misconception actually that folks rely on Narcan. The folks that are getting Narcan, they don't want it.
Nah, because it puts them straight into withdrawal.
Immediately.
Pisses them off. They're pissed.
So when, you know, if people think like, oh, I'll get saved, you know, don't worry about it, I'm just going to do dope and I know I'll get saved.
That's probably rare, probably non-existent almost, that mentality. It's people that don't understand it at all that think that too. Like people from the outside looking in.
That I've never had any experience with it, but you know, and then like I can recall the guy that I administered Narcan to. At the same time, he was thankful that I had just saved his life. He was pissed because everything he had just shot up. I mean, walking down the road, book bag on his back. I mean, went down, book bag still on his back, like he went down.
Just fell out like by the road.
Right, in the front yard of a place on the road. Like he was in the yard out on the roadway, and he fell down, and that's where I administered it to him. And
somebody called it in.
Yeah, it was a lady that called in. It's like, hey, this guy's in my front yard, and like I tried to wake him up, and he's not doing anything. So when I get there, I actually had an intern with me, a young girl, and she had never seen anything like that in her life. I mean, I had been to overdoses before and seen EMS administer Narcan, so I mean, I kind of knew what to look for and the change. But I mean, when she saw him, she's like, I mean, she told me afterwards, she's like, dude, he was dead.
Yeah. Because,
I mean, he was great. He was just a solid, I mean, he was...
Oh, God.
I mean, and luckily he ended up being fine. And I've not dealt with him since then at all, but to think that people, even when they're in their deepest, worst place they're in, and they're getting high, you know, to think that it's not okay to help somebody like that, you know what I mean? I think that just says a lot about the person, first off, and to be judgmental about it, because people that, when they get into those deep places, if you don't make yourself available to them, then there's nobody, you know, there is no avenue for them.
Yeah.
And we can't sit here and expect folks to just keep on trotting in that same lifestyle. I mean, if we want change, we have to make it happen. And I think that is the same thing with the addict too. And you and I talked about this before we went on, is that I may offer help 1,000 times and get shut down. Hey, I want to help you. Nope. They may not be ready. But it may be that next time that I ask that they say, you know what, I think today's the day. And that's when you got to be truthful with them. That's what I was telling you about earlier, is that you tell them expect to fall down. You know, this isn't going to be perfect.
Life's not. Yeah. It's not for anybody.
No.
Not for a drug addict, not for a regular person. Alcohol. It's not, life ain't like that.
No, it's not. So, I mean, but sorry, I sort of ran there and got off.
Dude, I love what you just said about how you can like making yourself available is a point that I keep hearing you make. And for me, like, it took multiple people to make themselves available. Right. And it took like that one or two of the right people to make themselves available at the exact right time, because the gift of desperation is a gift and it doesn't last forever. And it can last 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days, but if somebody doesn't make themselves available to you in that time window, it's over and you're back to what you were doing.
Not only me making myself available, what you're not saying too is that you made yourself available.
Yeah. Well, to a certain extent,
this much and this much is the same thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I made myself available this much,
and then it took you that you said 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days.
Yes.
That 5 minutes you were available that much.
Exactly.
That next 24 hours you were available this much, and then you made the decision of what you need to do to fix the problem and get out in front of it, and then you just open yourself up. This is what I'm going to do.
To vulnerability, you were talking about.
That's what it takes. I mean, and it's not the first attempt. It may not be the 100th attempt, but at some point you just got to keep trying. I mean, and I think that's what even for addicts, for us as in law enforcement or first responders, I mean, we have to just continuously keep doing. We can't get stuck in a rut and saying like, I'm going to go to this next call and just do A, B, and C and not care about the person, you know what I mean? Because going back to the Hines story, that guy said if someone would have asked how I was doing, I might not would have jumped, but nobody asked. So he felt like, damn, nobody really does care. Nobody cares. And we're just, making yourself vulnerable. And I get shut down a lot more than I get people saying like, hey, yeah, of course I want to go get help. Now, don't get me wrong. I hear people say all the time, oh, yeah, I want to get help, because they think it's going to just be whatever to get them out of the situation. And there's an expectation to follow through there on my side, and if they're willing to make it happen, I'll stay right there beside them and see them through it. But if I'm not, I had one person tell me, well, what if I do this? I don't want to let you down, type thing, And I've had people tell me that, I don't want to let you down. I know you're like sticking your neck out for me and trying to find me this place to go, but what if I fail? What if I don't follow through all the way and I relapse or whatever it is? And that's why I always tell them, I've already told you this. You're going to fall down, but you got to keep getting back up. We just have to, we have to stay steady in this, and I mean, not just from us, but for all of us. I mean, I'm just saying people in general. I mean, you don't have to be a cop or you don't have to be nobody special to get out and volunteer.
Or just, say, hey, how you doing to somebody that you don't know that looks like they might not be doing
They might not be having the best day.
I think that's where it kind of starts, like holding the door for somebody so they don't think they're invisible. Because that guy that jumped off the Golden State Bridge, or where, I think he said, the guy that jumped off the bridge that nobody ever asked him how he was doing, he probably felt invisible. Yeah. He probably felt like he didn't matter, or that he made any kind of difference.
Yeah, he said that exactly. He's like, man, nobody. He was feeling himself like, dude, nobody cares.
Yeah,
like, nobody sees me. Nobody cares. He's
That's
like,
sad.
I rode that bus out there. He said, and he says in the video that he was crying. I'm sitting on this bus, and this is a public bus. There's people coming and going off from it.
Nobody asks them what
everybody puts their blinders on because they like, oh, I got to get to work, or hey, I got to get to do this. They don't look around, and you take. It's never hurt anybody to just say, hey, how you doing?
Few extra seconds.
Just, you don't know how you might change somebody, man, and that's the thing. But
even if you're like, here's the thing, to kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Even if you're a type of person that can be scared of talking to people, think how scared that person might be that's sitting there crying on the bus.
Oh yeah.
Think about what could be going on with that person, and it's just sad, like the way. And there's a lot of good things that we've moved towards as a society, but I feel like a lot of the stuff, like the social media, kind of detaches us from like real human relations and vibes, and things like that. You know, like real conversations. The reason I started the podcast, a big reason, is because I would be on Facebook or Instagram, and I'd be like, oh, that person's ridiculous. Keep going. Yeah. And it's like total detachment from humanization. I don't know if that's a word, but that's a big thing you did when you encountered me that day, is that you humanized yourself. Right. Like, you made yourself like an equal human in that moment, to me, is what I saw. And that was like life-changing to me. Just to see somebody that I saw as my enemy to humanize himself, it was like, that's all it kind of took for me to just listen. That's what it took for me to even just listen to what you were saying. Because I would block people out in all areas, want. Like, I'm not hearing it, bro. Right, yeah. You know, and it was just that you're the only police officer I could hear. And I've talked to a lot of them. You know what I mean? And I talked to you before that and couldn't hear you. You know, it just wasn't the time.
That's not right.
I wasn't suffering enough, is the thing. And it got to that point where I was suffering enough. I had been suffering enough for a long time at that point, because it was such a long time between times I saw you. But I think it's like what you were talking to me about on the phone a couple months ago. Is like, there's that window of opportunity, and if you don't get it right then and try to make something happen right then, it's going to be real hard to get somebody back. You know, when you're on your knees and you're begging, that's the time to get it done. But you know, if I can get back up and not change anything, it's kind of like I'm gonna ride it out again until I get put back on my knees. Right. So it was kind of like I was forced. I needed to be forced into a place where I could get help. You know, I just couldn't do it on my own. I couldn't. Right. So, but I'm grateful that you have an outlook like you do about, you know, helping people, and your outlook on Narcan, and then even the outlook on the drug replacement therapy, I think is important, because I just still, to this day, haven't met anybody that's truly free. Right. If they're on those maintenance programs. It's just sad to me, dude. Like, I feel like it's almost impossible to live to your fullest potential if you're on those maintenance programs, you know? Sure. And it sucks, but those are also people that need compassion and love, and people that we have to treat kind of like, we have to treat them like equals, man, because if we don't, they're not going to hear anything we say. Who are they going to turn to if we don't treat them well, you know what I mean?
The people on maintenance stuff, too, you see a lot of times, like you and I were speaking before, you said they're never free. Yeah. They're never free to, but it's almost like, and from my perspective, I almost feel like there's a misconception of like, okay, I'm doing the whatever, you know, Suboxone or methadone, whichever one it is, and there's this false sense of I am living clean, right, when they're on them, because they're not, you know, doing heroin or doing whatever they were doing. So there's just like this. You basically are living on like false hope. You know what I mean? That one day this is going to be. One day I'm gonna be completely off from it, and if it all works well, then great, then that's good. But these folks you see that's just on this and on this and on this for long periods of time, you're right, they're never free, because unfortunately opiate addiction is one of those things that you're either completely cut those chains off from you to where you have zero attachment to it. And I mean, and I say attachment being not receiving anything, Suboxone. Right. You know, because you're truthfully not ever off from it if you're not completely freed of it, because, you know, even the smallest amount is there, and which I think, for me, and I don't know if you would agree, or when people are doing the replacement treatments, I feel like almost makes them even more vulnerable to, well, first off, it puts them daily back into the groups of people that are dealing with the same thing, and it can be good for them as far as talking if they have the mindset to stay on track. But there's a lot of bad things that happen amongst those groups too, because, you know, not everybody there is
there to do
the right thing.
Right.
So I mean, there's been a lot of burnt bridges, you know, with, you know, people getting that type of treatment, because that I think is just a huge crutch to make people fail again. I mean, if it's, and that's why when I was saying that the regulations need to be, I mean, there needs to be more to control how that stuff's used.
Yeah, because it's being misused.
I mean, 100%. You know, you think about, this will be my thing, is if you got folks that have been in these programs for 4 and 5 years that are taking this stuff, you think about financially, insurances, whatever they're spending on it. You cut that off. If they're supposed to be there 30, 60 days max, whatever the treatment's supposed to be, they hit that 60 days,
you don't get
that funding. That funding stops.
Yeah.
Take the funding that we're wasting on that and create true treatment facilities.
It's a good idea.
Rehabs.
It's a good idea.
You know, places we can go, like, have readily available. Because right now the biggest problem is, if I had somebody come to me right now and said, hey, I want help and I want to go today, Sturk, I'm staying with you until you find me a bed. Dude, I mean, sometimes that can be a week. It can mean, if the world falls perfectly in front of us, you know, we might could find something pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes we're talking a week to 2 weeks. Usually that window of wanting that help is nowhere near that long.
Well, that's like your withdrawal window too.
Right.
So here's the thing. Here's my issue with the whole, and I'll be completely honest, and it's not a compassionate outlook, and it's hard for me to have a compassionate outlook because of my experience with it. It's like I had to go through withdrawal to make me not want to go back to what brought me to the withdrawal.
Yeah.
So these drugs like Suboxone and Methadone prolong everything, and they don't allow you to actually withdraw from what you were doing.
So you never get that negative experience.
You never get to suffer, like truly, really suffer. And like this, like I needed to be able to not sleep and sweat and not sit still and have headaches and body aches and leg aches, like stuff. I'm not gonna die from this. Yeah. So to me, it's almost, and I mean, this is just what I think. It's like these maintenance drugs are unnecessary, and it's like, I mean, there's got to be some way to use them in a good way. Like, don't get me wrong, there's got to be. But for me, it's almost like it prolongs the addiction, and there's got to be people somewhere in there that have got it, that have got clean because of these drugs. I'd love to talk to somebody like that. I'd love to have them on the podcast, like somebody that's been on the Suboxone or the Methadone for years and then got off of it, and that played a part in why they are the way.
Recovery.
Exactly. So, but for me, it's almost like I had to go through the truly negative. I snuck Suboxone into rehab because they wouldn't give them to me, and I lied to them about how much drugs I was doing to get the maintenance drugs because I wanted them that bad because I didn't want to go through the withdrawal. I was scared. So I snuck like one Suboxone in there. I took half of it one day, half of it the next day, and that was it. That's all I had. I couldn't get any more. And so, and I actually changed my date that I was clean because I look back at that like, okay, well, you used not under a doctor's orders and you snuck it in there. Yeah. So I moved my day 2 days later because it took me 3 years to get honest with myself enough to do that without using drugs for 3 years. Yeah. It's just crazy how the human brain works and the addict brain, and like the brain is crazy, dude.
Powerful.
Dude, it's powerful, man.
Super powerful.
But yeah, I mean, just even looking back at that, I just think that for me, I had to really truly suffer.
Yeah.
Like I had to. I look back at that, dude, of rehab, and I like don't ever want to go back there. And I even look back at a halfway house, and I'm like, I don't ever want to live there with 8 dudes ever again.
Don't want to do that.
Nah, dude, and like have to do a chore every day, and it taught me a lot. I rode a bicycle for the first year I was in Wilmington, and like I worked at a car wash, and I remember like I hated that bike, dude, because I wanted to drive so bad, but I didn't have a license because of DUI, and I totaled my vehicle. And I remember driving that bike in the winter, dude, up to the car wash, and it was like 1.5 miles or something, and it was like 6:37 in the morning, so it was freezing cold. And I remember driving that bike. I'm like, man, I hate this. And then after the winter was over, I finally got a vehicle, and I remember looking back and being like, damn, I'm glad I had to drive that bike, because it makes me realize that I don't ever want to. I want to keep moving forward. I don't want to turn around. And if I just take a chance and do one thing that I know I'm not supposed to do, and that guilt starts to consume me again, it's going to bring me to probably a worse point than I was before all this, you know. And like that hard shit that you're talking about, that you're saying people are scared of, that's what makes us, man. And we can go through, like, we can make it through things that we don't ever think we can make it through. And like when I get to the point on the elliptical or the treadmill, or if I'm running down the road and I'm like, I can't go another step, it's like, just take one more step, dude. Like you can push your body and your mind past that point. It's like a breaking point in quotation marks, because it's really not. It's really not a breaking point.
Is your breaking point.
Yeah, man, and we can push ourselves so much further than what we ever think we could go. You know, like you had a kidney transplant.
I did.
Yeah, and I remember seeing things about that, but I don't know much about it, and like I'm sure that took you probably to a dark place.
Yeah, man, I never. I tell you what, so in 2011, my kidneys failed completely. I went overnight. I mean, I had just, even backing up that, my little girl who's 7 now. She had been born. I came home, did the whole dad thing, stayed home with the kid. She was 4 weeks old. I went back to work. The first day I went back to work, I was so sick and didn't know why. I was so sick. I was like weak, and I was saying, well, damn, you know, maybe I have like a stomach ulcer or something. 'Cause I was having like really bad indigestion. I go to the doctor, they're like, yeah, we'll refer you over here, get this and this done. They're like
before specialists?
Yeah, so they were going to do the scope, you know. We're like, well, maybe you got, you know, the kid stressed, you're not sleeping well, maybe you just got some digestion issues. I was like, okay. She said, before you leave, let's just do some lab work, and we'll send that off, and we'll get your referral over to you. They'll call you, and so on and so on. And I'm like, okay. I do my lab work, and the lady calls me back, and she's like, come to the hospital right now. Like, right now. Come over here. You won't have to worry about it. We already got your paperwork done. You're getting admitted. And I'm like, what in the world's going on here? Like, you have like 7% kidney function right now.
Oh my God, dude.
So like literally my wife, I call her and I'm like, hey babe, I'm going to the house, I'm getting changed, going to the hospital. They say I got to come in there, my kidneys are failing. Dude, my little girl's 4 weeks old. So I go home that night. So like they're telling me as soon as you get there, like, hey, you need to choose which surgery you're gonna have. You gotta start dialysis like as soon as possible. Like you need to hurry up.
Dude.
Like I said, these are your 2 options. So the next day, here my wife is with our kid, and I'm in the hospital having surgery, getting a tube put in my stomach, and I start dialysis. By the grace of God, my brother, he got tested and was able to give me a kidney.
Wow, dude. So, I was wondering who gave you a kidney.
Yeah, my middle brother.
Wow.
He gave me a kidney, and I'm a little over 5 years now with the new kidney, and everything's great. And, so things are good. With that, you know, so I did dialysis for almost 2 years. So I'm gonna tell you, what I was getting at before, and I got sidetracked, but I never had a panic attack ever. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was dying. So I used to do, because I didn't want to have to go to the hospital 3 times a week to go do these treatments. I had to take these classes, and they give me basically a dialysis machine I had in my house. So at nighttime, I had a tube in my stomach, the type of dialysis I did. And I basically filled my stomach up with fluid, and then it drained out, and that's how I did my dialysis. Well, the tube that I hooked to me was 10 feet long. So once I got in bed and I hooked to it, and I'd have to do this for like 12, 13 hours at a time. Dude. So I'd go get in bed at 8 o'clock. I'd go the next morning until like 8, sometimes 8, 9 in the morning doing dialysis. Well, one night I'm laying in bed, and it got me depressed, because, I'm sitting here thinking, dude. I'm just, took my own horn. I'm like, I'm this badass, and blah, blah, blah.
They got you in a dark place.
And I'm sitting here thinking, like, one night I can remember laying in bed, and I'm sitting there, and every time the kid made a noise, my wife had to jump up and go deal with it.
Because you were connected to the thing.
And then I'm sitting there telling her, I'm like, I started thinking about it. I said, if somebody comes to the door, knocks on the door, breaks in, does something, like, I felt like it started making me feel like I was less of a man, because I'm like, I'm going to send my damn wife to the door. When I'm the man, I'm supposed to be able to one who's protect me. So, it really messed with me a lot.
Yeah.
And one night I'd hooked to the machine and I'm sitting there and I woke up, man, and it felt like I had an elephant standing dead center in my chest. I mean, it freaked me out. I'm telling her, I'm like, I'm having a heart attack. You know, the room felt like it was this big. Of course, after a while, I mean, I was like hyperventilating and stuff, you know, and after a while, it calmed down. Of course, I talked with the doctor about it. He's like, you had a panic attack, because obviously you know what it is. And yeah, I had gotten, man, I had like, it was a huge burden, you know, and it had put me emotionally in just I felt like crap, you know. I mean, so I guess the point of that is that, you know, every one of us in life has things that get to us and get down on us and really weigh in on us. But we have to keep pushing forward, you know what I mean? But I end up basically, long story short, I ended up changing how I did dialysis and started going to a clinic, because you go to the clinic for like 4 hours at a time. And I always did the super early one, so I'd go in and start at like 6 and go to 10 on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Damn, that's a lot, dude.
So I'd go there, they'd place you in a hospital chair, and they'd hook you up to they put a catheter in my neck, so like you could do a lot more, it was a lot more invasive. I mean, they basically take your blood out of you, clean it, and put it back in you type thing.
Because that's the function of a kidney.
Right.
Is to filter your blood
and get all the toxins.
So the dialysis machine actually does what a kidney's supposed to do.
And it does it, so you would go do it for that time period, and then you would have to, so I'd do it like Monday, and then I'd get out of there, and you know, when you leave, man, I mean, it would, so they can turn these machines up at the rate that it's cleaning your blood, but a lot of things play into it, like blood pressure and stuff, so when they'd really turn the machine up and it was working harder, it'd make your blood pressure drop. So, I mean, you'd be there, and then you'd start, I mean, you'd pass out, I mean, it's all kind of stuff, so, I mean, I was sitting there, you know, I mean, and it got to me for a while, man.
So you were waiting on a transplant?
I was. So
during this?
So I got, it takes a while to get on the actual list to get a transplant. So I got on the list. And then it took time. My brother was getting tested and all this stuff. They find out that he's a match.
Blood match. Has to match your blood type.
Right, has to be the blood type, and then has to, just a bunch of different, because they do like immune testing as well, too, to see if my body might reject his kidney immediately type thing. And so out of a 6 is a perfect match. He was a 5. So I mean, it was dang near just perfect, you know. So I got that, and blessed, man. You know, I've been doing really well, and everything's still going great, you know what I mean. And I think that had a lot to me. It made me really, because before that, I mean, I had dealt with things. My dad had been sick, you know, and I had dealt with sickness. But that really, made me step back. Not that, the one thing is I had just had a kid, so I mean, that opens your eyes up a lot when you bring a life in. But then to have brought a life into the world and then see mine kind of lingering out there and not knowing how it was going to work out, it really made me take a whole different approach on life in general. But there was a very small chance there that I was going to even be able to return back to work. I mean, they were telling me hey, you need to retire. You're going to have to retire because you'll never be able to go back and do what you're doing.
Glad you didn't retire, dude.
And I actually, one doctor, was trying to almost, hey, you need to go ahead and you need to be thinking about retiring. And I was I refused to give up. I'm nah, man, I'm not. You know, I burned up every bit of every bit of my sick time, vacation time. I was out a year, and they were you just need to go ahead and retire. And I'm nah. I stayed in and stayed strong. Got the transplant. Within about 6 months of getting the transplant, I was back at work.
Nice.
And
did you feel more back to normal, or still kind of off? Or?
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't realize too, man. As I worked up until I was doing dialysis and still going to work, but I was doing it at home for the first part. Terrible. So you talking about being tired beyond being tired? I mean, not to mention, I'm out here dealing with folks, and like I got this tube hanging on my stomach. You know, I was like coiling it up and like taping it to my body because I didn't want somebody to like grab it and rip it out of me or something. You know, so I'm sitting here and like I had to refuse. I just refused to give up. You know, and when I got back to the point where I was at work, and I had a whole different outlook on everything
after the transplant.
Yeah, I thought about it. Said, you know, people are precious. Life's precious, man. I mean, you never know. You know, I mean, I'd been running around and doing everything under sun. I mean, hell, in life, you're supposed to feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof. You know, I mean, I'd taken a lot of things for granted. And I'm like, man, you know, you just really taking up time with people and really being appreciative of every person. You know what I mean? Even people that are dealing with like addiction stuff, I mean, they still have attributes about them that they may not be 100% dedicated to the community at the time they're struggling, but I mean, they still play their role, you know what I mean? And they're very valuable. What you've done since you've overcome this, and you know what I mean, I've reached out to you. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to you, like, hey, you got anything for me? I mean, this is what I'm trying to do. I just had a completely different outlook on life that just made me really take a step back and just, I guess, be a lot more analytical, you know, just kind of what's different that we can do, you know what I mean, instead of just getting caught up.
So change your whole mentality.
Yeah, I mean, instead of just being caught up in the daily grind of being like, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to come home, I'm going to go to work, come home, and then the people that you deal with in between your windows of what you do are just that, people that you deal with.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I mean, I almost lost my ability to be out here to help people. So, like, now more than ever, like, I'm taking a step back and, like, that's just kind of been my mentality since then.
It was a life-changing experience.
Yeah, man, when you think you're going to die, dude, you're like, life's precious. It makes you it really opens your eyes to a lot, you know what I mean? So,
what year did you say that was?
I got transplanted in 2012.
12. Yeah. Oh, so after me and you, man.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
what
crazy.
year was that?
That was 2011.
11.
Yeah.
So I may have even been doing dialysis then. I mean,
wow, that's crazy.
The first part of 11. Yeah, I would have had to have been. Do you remember the month?
Yeah, it was April.
Yeah. So like March, I had just started dealing with all that stuff, and then in August of 11 is when they officially had said like, hey, yeah, your kidneys are done. They're not going, because you know they were doing treatments and saying like, oh, you might come back and regain some function. But I was doing all these tests, and that's when they found out like, nah, you're gonna have to have a transplant type thing.
Man, that's crazy. You got a crazy story, dude.
So I don't know, man. Did my second kid come along?
Yeah, he looks just like you.
Yeah,
just like you, bro.
I can't deny him.
No, I can't deny mine either.
I was looking at him earlier, and I was like, oh yeah, that's little Alex for sure.
Yeah, yours looks just like you. I just seen something you posted on Instagram.
Yeah.
Isn't it awesome being a dad, dude?
Man, I'm telling you.
Coolest thing ever, ain't it?
They'll wear you out, though.
Dude, they'll wear you out, and it's so worth it.
Oh, yeah, man. Everybody picks it like, man, when you going to have another one? You going to have another one? And we're done.
That's it.
Yeah, we're done.
See, we probably will have another one at some point, just because I had a brother and then she had sisters.
Yeah, I was going to say, my wife, she's an only child. So then I grew up with two brothers. So,
yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm kind of like used to there being
more than one.
And I think she was like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the only kid too. Like she see, you know, like that. Yeah, that's important. Yeah. And of course, we were grateful that we were like, hey, I got my boy, I got my girl.
Yeah,
like,
that's cool, man.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, being a dad is super special. And I mean, and that's another thing that just makes me think like, if the world is in the shape it is right now, like I have to also think and work for trying to prepare them for, I mean, what's it going to be like when they're our age, you know, when they're, you know what I mean? And that's scary to me. So it's kind of, I mean, I'm a very small piece of the puzzle. I think every person's a very small piece to the puzzle when it comes to our society, obviously, but if I can't change the world, I'm gonna try to change the community type thing. And if I can't change the community, I might change a person. So one good is as good, you know. That's why I was saying earlier, we were like, oh, that window of opportunity is.
That's exactly what it was too.
So you think about it, you're saying like, if you're doing good, and I'm a karma person, so I mean, I'm thinking if you're doing good and living good, that reaps its own. If I'm doing good things for you, it's likely if you're a recipient of good things, you're probably going to pass on good things as well. So I think if we all just do a little bit, it's going to be better. You know?
Make a huge difference.
Yeah,
huge difference. Yeah, I see pictures of your kids all the time, and I can just tell you love being a dad. I'm the same way. Like, dude, it's awesome. Like, there ain't nothing more gratifying than that. You know, I feel like I could never understand that unless I actually had a kid. Like, I would hear people say things like that, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I didn't get what they were saying at all. So, yeah, it's just cool. I relate to you on that level as far as like loving being a dad, dude. It's great.
Like, before we were on the way over here, like, my kid's obsessed with sports, any sports.
Both of them?
My little girl, she's a cheerleader in gymnastics.
Okay.
That's her.
Yeah, sports.
But my little boy, he's like, Dad, turn on football. So I'll put the TV on football. He comes right back in there with his baseball bat and a balloon. He wants me to blow the balloon up so I can hit it to him and he swings on the balloon. So, like, it's just, he watches. So the funny thing is, we've been, recently, I didn't realize we were putting YouTube on TV. And of course, I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, oh man, like hardest hits of 2018. So I'm watching this, right? Dude, I'm like, man, he's like being like almost violent, you know? And that's because that's what he's watching, you know what I mean? So like I sit there and I'm looking, and Karen's like, well, you're watching like the word like cats get laid out, you know what I mean?
Oh, UFC?
No, on football, like hardest hits. I mean, it's like some receiver going over the middle, and it's like, bam, you see his
laid out,
You know, and I'm like, well, he wants to watch football, and that's what I want to watch, you know, so I'm like, oh, that's cool, so I turn it on. Man, he'd like get his ball, and he runs, cream his sister, just boom, knock it. I'm like, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So we had to start watching a little bit better, like the highlights, you know, so now, but... So they pick up on everything, man. So like the other day, yesterday, we were sitting there and we were watching like the top celebrations or whatever on football. And there's like 10 footballs in our house. He grabs one and plays. So he's getting his football and he's walking across the room. And the guy on the TV had just like scored it, and he like had the ball in his hand and he like chunks it across the end zone like that. Well, Clayton's watching him. And like I see Clayton walk off from in front of the fireplace, and he walks about 5 steps, throws his ball across there, and he's like, I'm like, dude, if that doesn't show you though that they're like watching everything you do.
They're trying to emulate it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, their brains are just 1,000 miles a minute. And it makes you proud too. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I was like, he's gonna play football, baseball.
Yeah, he's gonna be a beast for sure.
So I'm excited, man. Next year he'll be able to start playing T-ball, so me and Karen, I'm like, yeah, we're going to get him in there.
I just got my kid like this little tiny glove, dude, and I'm like, I got these little soft little baseballs, and I'm going to start, but they're wrapped up under the tree right now, but I got them in Target, so I put them on his hand, let him play with it in the store just to make sure he would be into it. Yeah, and he did, so we're going to give it to him when we get back.
His dad didn't play baseball, man.
Yeah, dude, I love baseball, dude. I love it. Dude, I really, really appreciate you coming over here and doing that.
I'm glad you had me, dude. Like,
dude, we should do more, and we should get Taylor Phillips to come on with us sometime.
Taylor?
That'd be cool. We're calling you out, bro.
Yeah, if you're watching, I know you're in town a little bit longer. We'll do it again.
I'll stay here if you want to come over. He's probably commented on the thing. I guarantee you he did.
People were talking.
Yeah, people were talking. Let's make sure they didn't ask you anything.
Yeah, that's all.
Start with the debut on the world famous podcast, Jeremy Willett. Who we got on here? Bunch of people watching. I don't know why actually you want to tag people in it. Dude, what's up? This man opened my eyes to a lot of things. Appreciate it, Sturt. Brandon Morton. That's little Brandon Morton, ain't he? Ain't a little guy? Yeah, I know who he is.
Brandon, if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook, You can message me, whatever you need to do. We can chat.
Josh Cass clapping. Round of applause. Shire said you're gonna call Ghostbusters.
They're not gonna come.
Ain't no such thing, bro.
And I'm not wearing one of those outfits.
Matt Moore said respect. He's doing good.
Good. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a long time.
I know you remember him. He was a little troublemaker, boy. 3 for Dale. Oh, he see my he must see my Alabama shirt talking about Dale Earnhardt.
Where's one of that?
What are you talking about, bro? What were we talking about?
I don't know.
A lot of people watch this thing, dude. Thank y'all for watching.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Post any questions for Sturk. If y'all got questions for him, post it on there. Thank y'all for listening. Anybody who's listening to the audio, we really appreciate you listening. This video right here, thank y'all for watching.
Appreciate y'all.
We're going to sync up that audio with that clap at the beginning, and we'll do many more podcasts together. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Dude, thanks for doing it, bro. I could probably talk to you for about 3 days.
Yeah, we can do it.
Like. Oh, I thought somebody was coming downstairs. Yeah, so this thing, you hit in live video, and then you share it. You can share it on your story and your timeline, which is pretty cool. It'll tag you in it, though. William Sturkie. Yeah, that's awesome, dude.